We remember what we said, right?
Yeah, I do.
Genius.
Mensa.
Super memory. Does Mensa mean you have super memory, or does Mensa just mean you're like wildly off the charts with IQ?
If you were in the club, you'd know.
Like you, oh, well, I guess so. Like you can figure
We're
out
not
puzzles
supposed to talk
faster than
about
somebody
it.
else.
It's kind of like
Secret
Fight Club.
society.
Yeah. We're not supposed to talk about it with non-Mensa members.
I'm outside the circle.
Well, I hate to break it to you.
Oh, you're not breaking anything to me. I knew that a long time ago.
Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Michael Gray.
And I'm Erin Green.
And welcome to the show.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, how you doing?
How are you, Michael?
I'm good.
Oh, I beat you.
You
I
did.
beat you to the ask.
You did. Beat you to the ask.
Of course, you didn't really have your act together. Right before you introduced, you were like itching your nose and you were
I'm
laughing.
struggling this morning. It's been one of those mornings.
It's like if you were on Saturday Night Live, you'd be cracking yourself up and you couldn't get through
Oh,
the
I'd be
joke.
terrible. I would be terrible. Yeah. You know how, like, was it Jimmy Fallon that, like, broke all the time on Saturday Night Live?
Yes.
That would be me.
It's Matt's favorite part. He loves when comedians crack themselves up because he knows what it's like to make himself laugh. And it's like some of the best humor he's ever experienced.
Yeah, that would be me. I would not make it through probably any skit ever.
How's your day so far?
It's fine. It's been one of those days, just kind of it's been a really busy morning and just, a lot of things, those mornings where if it can go wrong, it does kind of thing.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
One of
Back
those.
to back to back. Mhm.
Yeah. And just, it's going to be a busy afternoon and evening, like till about 9 o'clock tonight. So it's just one of those long work days, but yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. That kind
Doing
of
this thing.
your brain is kind of buzzing all day on those days.
Yeah.
And then once you can like turn it off and let go, it feels so good.
Yeah. Like, so the sound right now is just like a beehive in my head, where normally it's just like the squeaky wheel of the hamster, So yeah. How are you?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morning's going well?
Yeah, it's my second morning of doing the morning workout that I told you about. So for our listeners, I've been realizing for some time, and I don't think we were recording when I told you this story the other day, that about the carrying the grill off the back of the truck with Matt. And I was like,
before.
oh, this is a bad idea. My upper body's so weak. So I haven't done any real strength training for literally months. Because if I don't have a program, I don't really do it. And I'm not going to a gym right now. So I just decided the other morning that enough is enough, because I'm tired of kind of having these moments of like physical weakness where I used to count on my body to just do whatever I asked it to do. And I'm starting to realize that, this is, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I started doing this daily workouts that I get in my inbox from this email blast that I get called the Workout Today. And they're very simple and they're short. They're like 20 to 30 minutes and it's all like body weight stuff I can do at home. And I think of you when I do them, Michael, because first of all, I think of like, first of all, I think like I should tell Michael I'm doing this because he'd be really excited that I'm doing strength work. And then secondly, I'm like, this seems like something you would probably do or that exists in your world for your clients, is like some kind of daily or at least a couple times weekly, like, hey, here's a little easy, like simple thing you can do.
It doesn't.
Oh, well.
Yeah, maybe it should.
Idea. Yeah. It's working for me because it's simple enough that it's not intimidating and it's, not so far out of my comfort zone. But then I will tell you, after I did the first one on Monday, I'm still sore from that. Like from simple like push-ups and burpees and lunges and stuff. I'm just like, my body needs a little help. I can, go ride my bike for 8 hours and be fine, but you put me in a strength program for 20 minutes and I'm sucking my thumb.
It's always fun when clients have to, what I call they have to do the free fall potty drop, which is you get about halfway down, then it's just like, it's all gravity from here. I'm too sore to control this situation anymore. And good luck getting up.
Yeah, so that was my morning, and just got some stuff done around the house, got a little work done, and now I'm here with you.
And now you're here with me. Here we are.
Yeah.
Doing
What are we
this
talking about today?
Middleish thing. Oh, I don't know. What are we talk about?
Doing the hard things.
Doing the hard things. I know.
Telling yourself it's hard.
Yes.
Which my little story was the perfect segue for that, I think, just because for the longest time, I think I've told myself how, it's for whatever reason, it's hard, or I don't know how, which is such bull crap because I have a degree in XPhys. It's not like I don't know how to do strength work, but it's just like that laziness of like, I don't write exercise programs. That's not what I do. So I'm not going to do it for myself. It's just kind of this silly thing that I talked myself out of for a long time.
Yeah.
I finally found my way out of it.
Yeah.
I'm doing
Well, I think, I'm really excited about this topic actually, because I think it's interesting in that it's not really like specific, like there's some vagary. What's the word? Vagarity? It's vague. Am I making words up right now?
vagueness.
Isn't there like
there's some vagueness? You're maybe thinking of vulgarity, which could be a different podcast
I'm usually
topic.
thinking of vulgarity, but that's usually something going on that shouldn't be shared.
Yeah,
Anyway, vagaries. Is that it? Anyway, it's
your podcast. You can make up words. Go for it.
Okay.
Vagaries, everybody.
Vagaries. Yeah. So it's not like real specific, like a lot of things are. A lot of the topics we have, a lot of the topics we have are kind of like black and white with what we'll discuss. And this is just more of a broad topic, I think, but it's one that I think is really important. And I think it's one people struggle with a lot. The idea of making a choice to come up to a hard thing, something is going to be hard, and just telling yourself, yep, I'm going to do it. That's challenging. It really is. And I think especially if you haven't done it a whole lot, it's a really scary thing. And I think most of the people we work with, when we start working with them, that's where they're at. They've made that brave choice to go, okay, I'm walking right up to this thing. I'm have you here to help me, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to step into this. In fact, I just had someone I talked to just last week who was like, yeah, I think I want to do this. I think I want to do this. And, let me talk to my husband and that kind of stuff. And 2 days later, I hadn't heard from her. So I shot her a text, just like, hey, are you still interested? Do you want to talk some more? And it was the whole, I don't want to do this again and fail. I don't want to waste my money again. I don't want to invest in this and spend my hard-earned money only to fail again, because that's what I do. That's what I've done. And so that's what I do. And it's a challenging thing. I think it takes a lot of courage, a lot of bravery to just step up to the plate, but then to actually stay there and take some swings, like it is not easy. It's not easy.
Totally. And the phrase, it's hard, on its own, just basically makes me think of, I can't, or it's hard, period. There's no, but I'm going to try, and I want to succeed, and I'm going to give it my best shot. And this was something I actually learned. I can think of the specific time in my life when I started learning this reframing about how you see challenges was in college when we go through the dietetics program. Part of it is professional development. So we have this whole professional development portfolio that we work on with whoever the coordinator of the program is. And it has like I don't know, self-help kind of stuff, I guess, or like, just professional development in how you approach situations, um, time management skills, cooperation with others, and team building, like all of these different things. And of course, I have this perfectionist tendency to be really hard on myself. And so I would just like basically put up this wall in front of myself whenever I'd
Mhm.
encounter something that was hard. And I'd just be like, I can't do it. Or it's too hard, or I don't want to do it. I just had this very self-destructive kind of block.
Mhm.
And the coordinator would sit down with me and we'd, be working on this stuff. And I will fully admit here that I was not ready to do some of the self work that was involved, but I had to. It was part of the program. And
Yeah,
so I'd sit
sure.
there in her office with her and she'd go through this stuff with me and she'd start using words like, so it's a challenge. What are some of your strengths that you can use? Or, what are some of
Mhm.
the things that you like? She would start kind of probing into what are some of the things that I see as my strengths in certain areas that I could leverage to help myself through some of these challenges and to look at them like challenges to be overcome and not just roadblocks that I have to back down from or get mad about or, because I would just get that mental block. And it pissed me off like so bad because she would tell
Yeah.
me, she would like use all these different words and phrases. And I was like, cat lady, you do not get me. Like, I really was
Mhm.
just like, I don't want to do this. But I had to start using some of those phrases around her. Otherwise, she wouldn't stop like pushing the buttons, right? And telling me, like, hey, you're using this talk again. So I started reframing how
Mhm.
I would talk about challenges or how, and guess what? It started shifting the way I would view them. And I
Mhm.
started actually realizing the power in that. Just,
Mhm.
okay, I can look at this a different way. And it's just like anything else. We've talked about a lot of things that if you practice it and you look at it like this routine and a learning experience and a practice, all of a sudden you start seeing those hard things
Right.
as relatable to hard things you've done before.
Right.
And I can look at this the same way that I looked at those other hard things.
Right.
So,
No, that's a great point. In fact, that's kind of the point I was getting to in my head is I think it's easy. This may take me a minute. So it's not uncommon when I start with somebody or working with somebody. I'm sure this is the case for you too. And we talked about this in a previous podcast about that kind of script we have in our head, of I make the attempt and then here's how it's probably going to go because here's how it's always gone. And so we're kind of ready for it to not go well. We're ready for us to give up or to quote unquote, fail at it, whatever. Because in our minds, that's sort of the proof we've given ourselves is this is what I do. But I think what we often do is we really limit the the type of proof that we let influence us. It's only in these attempts where we don't what we don't allow to what we don't allow to influence a lot is all this other proof of listen, no one is exactly where they were when they were born, right? I mean, we've all gone through changes and relationships and loss and wins, and we've all faced a bunch of new things a bunch of times. Um, and when we start those new things, right? It's something unknown. It's going to be hard. It's going to be scary. It's going to be unfamiliar. But we get into them, and before long, they become normal, you know, and and we forget that we've faced new things a million times in our lives,
right.
and those
Yep.
new things have become something we've adopted and just become the way we do life, right? And then so we're faced with something new and it's like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's like, you have done this forever. You've been doing it forever, you know? We had I had a conversation with Lila the other day. She has been on online school and they have so many new kids coming back to in person that she's had to change teachers. Did I tell you this?
I don't
Okay,
think so.
so last week was the last week with the teacher she had, who she
Oh,
loved.
geez.
And so she's gonna have to start with new online teachers on Tuesday, last Tuesday. So I apologize to everybody. I got crap in my throat and I cannot get it out. Jeez. I'm all raspy and stuff. But
That
so
gravelly voice.
I know, right?
Everybody's crooning over the like
Mhm.
singer voice you've got
Right.
going here.
My Barry White voice going on. So we were talking this weekend because she was nervous about it. Like, I don't know if I'm going to like them. I really like my old teachers. I'm sad I'm not going to have them anymore. What if I don't like these new teachers as well? Just anxieties around it. And we were just talking about like, but hey, when you started online school, the first of the year, what were your thoughts about this? You were nervous. What if I don't like it? What if it doesn't go well? What if I don't like my teachers? Right.
Yeah.
And you just step into it and you do it. And before long, it's not new anymore. It's not even hard. It's just what you're doing, you know? And so we just had this conversation around that of like, you just did this. And I understand why it's scary. I understand why it feels hard and all that stuff, but you just did this thing and you did it well. And it became how you do things.
Yeah.
I think
And you can do it again.
exactly. And I think we often forget. It's like we just focus on just a few things, of well, I made this attempt, and 4 or 5 attempts over the last 5 or 6 years, and they didn't go well. So that tells me how it's going to go versus like there's all this other experience in life that says something different.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that is also getting caught up in the fear. Like you had mentioned the fear of failure with your client. Like that I've tried this before. It's never worked for me. So I think that's another thing to think about. People will get caught up in the it's hard and maybe they know they could even possibly accomplish it, but they're fearful of doing the hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced this a lot with my training where I would have a workout that was put in my schedule and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really hard. This is going to hurt. It's, maybe those numbers are really high or it's just like a really long workout, whatever. And yeah, I could just tell myself like, oh, it's really hard. And even partway through the workout, I could get caught up in it's so hard and just, um, you know, not even try. Like
Right.
I'm not going to make it. I'm going to fail. Um, I'm reminded of this professional triathlete named Chris McCormick. Those of you who are listening who are in triathlon know who this guy is. Multiple world champion, just a very accomplished legend of the sport, essentially. And I read his book years ago. And I remember something he said about the pain that he encounters in a race. And I mean, it's physical pain, but it's just like this overwhelming feeling that you need to stop what you're doing. You need to slow down. You need to let up. I mean, your body's screaming at you in the middle of a race or toward like the final moments of the race, or you're pushing yourself harder and harder because your competition is right on your heels. And he developed this way of saying, well, hello, my old friend. Welcome back. And greeting the pain and reassuring himself that if this hurts, I'm doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is such an interesting way to look at doing the hard thing. Like, if I'm encountering hard things, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm challenging myself, I'm, continually reaching for something beyond what I'm currently doing.
Right.
So
I
it's like
love that.
always kind of telling yourself that, okay, this is a hard thing. And maybe it's something I've done before, and maybe it's something I've never done before. And then maybe I've
Right.
tried it 1,000 times and I've
Right.
failed. Try it again because
Yep.
this might be the time that you get it. And
Right.
what will that feel like? I
Right.
mean, how many times, like if anybody has taught a little kid how to ride a bike or watch their baby take their first steps and like really just finally get that, put the one
Mm-hmm.
foot in front of the other thing, kids don't give up on those things very easily, right?
Right. Yeah.
But as adults, how do we get all like our brain kind of takes over in that like
Yeah.
fear of I might not be able to do it.
Right. Okay, sorry about that. I was having technical difficulties with my microphone, and yeah, I think we're good now. So hopefully the audio is better and you can hear my voice clear and all that kind of stuff. So right back at it. Here we go. I think it seems like there's this fear of doing hard things. Like hard things are things to shy away from, you know. And it's like, where does easy get you? Like easy has got you probably where you are, right? Like the reason you're where you are, and if you're unhappy with that, it's probably because you've been doing easy. And this isn't a judgment. I think it's just a fact. You know, easy is our routines and our habits and that kind of stuff. And it's easy to just go on autopilot with that for years, sometimes for your entire life, right? Like we just do what we do and that's what we do. And to step out of that is a challenge. You know, to do things differently is hard, but it's in talking with people sometimes it just feels like there's this fear of doing something that's going to be difficult. And
Yeah.
I just really believe that the only, like, all the things that are like wonderful and life changing and just like, you know, bring about like beautiful new things in our lives are on the other side of hard things, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like if we want to like become, you know, the latest version, you know, like upgrade our software to the latest version of whatever that is, you know, more empathetic or a better parent or stronger or, you know, improving our diet, whatever it is, like there's a hard thing to get through with that. If there wasn't a hard thing, you'd already be doing it, right? Like if being an amazing dad was like super easy, like I'd already be doing it. But it's like I'm working every day to try to be a better one. It's hard and it sucks sometimes and it's frustrating, you know. And
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to acknowledge like your failures, where it's just like, man, I really screwed up that opportunity with my kid, or that was absolutely the wrong way to respond. Okay, so I've got to be more mindful. I need to apologize. You know, I need to own my mistakes. And it's hard and it's a process. But on the other side of that is like, man, a dad that my kids deserve, you know, like
Yeah.
getting through hard things is how you get to better things, you know? And man, we can't
Absolutely.
shy away from them.
Well, and something you just said, as far as like, it seems like people kind of dwell on the hard,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you are confronted with a situation and all you can think about is how difficult it is or how you can't do it or how you
Right.
messed it up and I totally failed. Um, and my some of my wisdom for this episode actually
Ooh,
came this
wisdom.
morning. Yeah, it's
Look out.
you're gonna love this. It's Dwight Schrute wisdom.
I'm on board.
I know. So for some of our listeners are going to laugh because Michael and I have referenced The Office a couple times and I've never actually seen it. I had never seen
Mhm.
an episode until a couple months ago. So I've
It took me
systematically
a
been
while to
watching.
forgive you, just so you know.
I know. Well, we can be friends because I'm now halfway through season 3
All
and I'm
right.
starting to get the character development is just hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had the episode where Dwight leaves the office because Andy comes and
Mm-hmm.
she like squeezes him out.
Mm-hmm.
So Dwight he was like, he's endearingly disconnected with reality. Like he has his own little world and he's his biggest fan club. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's just ruthless in his belief in himself. And one of the things that was so funny to me is he leaves his job and then he's like, I am back on the job market and I'm ready. I even wrote down this quote because it cracked me up so much. I am ready to face any challenges that may be foolish enough to
Mm-hmm.
face me.
Yep.
And I'm like laughing out loud at this guy because he works at a paper company. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But he like fully believes in himself and his
Mm-hmm.
ability and his like mission to change his world. And he's like, there's nothing on my horizon except everything.
Except
Everything is
everything.
on my horizon.
Mm-hmm.
So this this Dwight Schrute wisdom that I was watching just earlier this morning and laughing to myself that I'm like, I'm actually going to quote this guy in our podcast. Um, it really is
I love
like
it.
taking that spin on things. Like it's just like my college epiphany. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard, but I'm going to give it my best shot, or it's
Right.
hard and I'm up for the challenge. And is suddenly putting that positive spin on it or telling yourself what you're going to do, not just getting stuck on, I I really screwed that up with my daughter. I'm a sucky dad, or I'm having a really bad, Father Day. Like I can't get my
Right.
act together. Tomorrow I'm going to do this.
Right.
Or this is how, if that situation comes up again, this is how I'm going to handle it. Or I need to go and apologize and talk about this with, my child and or my spouse or whatever happened and make it better. So I look at it as there's always an opportunity to learn and grow. So with those hard things, like you said, usually those amazing moments land on the other side of the
Right.
hard thing.
Yeah.
So don't just get stuck at telling yourself it's hard or I suck or I failed. Look for, what are you going to do about it? I mean,
Yeah.
what's your answer?
Right. Well, and I think it comes back to that. And we've talked about this before, the and, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it is hard. It might suck sometimes. It might not be fun sometimes. It's not only that, right? Like it's hard and this is what's going to come about from it, right? Like, okay, so using this father example, since we've kind of been talking about it, like doing these things, yes, it's hard. And I'm going to be a better father to my kids. And I'm going to show them better examples of, relationships with a male. And, they're going to be happier. And they're like, there's all these other things. And if I just focus on, well, this sucks and I don't like doing this, I don't like apologizing, I don't like having to, have a conversation with my kid where I let her be really honest with me about how she feels about my behavior. Like, this isn't the way this goes, right? Like, I'm the parent. And yeah, that's hard, but it's also all these other things. I mean, if there's so much like freedom in that, I think on the other side that so many people never get to experience because they just like they're caught up in it's hard. It's going to be hard. And I don't think I can do it, and it's just like, yeah, you can't, not at first. You can't,
Right.
because if you could, you'd already be doing it,
Right.
So be okay with really sucking at something for a while.
Yes.
In fact, I just posted something like this morning on my Instagram, just something to the effect of like, if you're going to do something new, you're going to suck for a while until you get a little bit better. If you're not willing to do that, then you're always going to suck at it.
Yeah.
So you can suck at it forever. You can suck at it for a little bit and get better. Those are your options, and we just so often stand there at that mountain of hard and just go,
Right.
nope,
And
I don't care what's on the other
remember,
side.
yep, remember that hard isn't impossible.
Right.
So remind yourself you've done the hard things before. And I'm even going to throw out that sometimes looking at something really hard and looking at a challenge can be exciting.
Right.
Like looking at something that you're like, holy crap, this kind of scares me a little and it's going to be really hard, but I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to do it and approaching it with some of that confidence and excitement that comes from, doing something that's uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. I think we live in, I think we seek like comfort and convenience so much.
Well, yeah. And we're in
know?
the generation of like instant gratification and,
Right.
no patience and yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think we often, and we talked about this before, I think, or maybe it was a conversation. In fact, I think it was a conversation we had maybe before we started the podcast when we were just kind of talking about doing it and kind of throwing ideas around and stuff. But just this idea that, there's something to convenience when it's to set you up for success, right? Like, let's say, professional athlete, like hire someone, a meal company, because that's something that they don't have the time to put into. And so it allows them to do other things like recover and train and that kind of stuff. Like that's not just skirting, work. That is an intentional choice that I can set myself up for success. I think about like people that do like HelloFresh meals, like awesome, great choice. It sets you up for success. But I think a lot of times people choose convenience routes because it's not hard, because it's just easier to do. And this may seem like splitting hairs a bit, but I think there's a real big difference between, am I doing this because it's going to make me more successful, or am I doing this because then I don't have to do something that's challenging?
Right. Like
And
clarifying your priorities
Mhm.
and your goals.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people, they choose the convenience thing because then they don't have to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm reminded of a time in my life before I became a professional triathlete and I was just like really working hard, kind of going toward that path.
Hmm.
And I got into this pattern of always choosing the hard thing,
Hmm.
always putting that pressure. And again, that perfectionist tendency in me was feeding that.
Hmm.
So I was a consultant. I had a few different jobs in different places around Boise and I would bike commute. And by damn, if I wasn't waking up at 5 a.m. to get all my crap ready and pack all my stuff to shower at work and to ride, the hour it would take to get to work, then I was not working hard enough if I wasn't doing that. And I
Right.
remember Matt telling me a few times, like, for God's sakes, lady, just, you're already doing like 2 workouts a day and you're, whatever.
Hmm.
He'd be like, why don't you make it easier on yourself and just not bike commute today and not
Yeah.
hassle with all the BS. And you have to wear like 4 layers because it's only 40 degrees out and stuff. So I really had to learn kind of the hard way that
Hmm.
facing the hard thing isn't always the right path either. So,
Right.
we've talked a lot today about like that fear of facing the hard thing. But then I
Hmm.
also know a lot of high achieving people who if you are not just 0 to 60 all day long for, 14 straight hours and you're minimizing sleep and you don't have time for this and you never make it easy on yourself and you never cut corners, that's also a recipe for disaster. Like always choosing the hard thing, the
Right.
hard epic things and
Right.
not taking that step back.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I'm curious, are you a procrastinator at all?
Yeah.
Are you? Okay, me too.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
I'm a procrastinator too.
terrible.
So I'm curious if this is similar because I kind of grew up, I mean, procrastinating just about everything I could. Um, and I just thought that I was just kind of lazy. That's kind of was my association with the procrastination piece. But as I got older, I just came to realize like my problem is I'm a perfectionist.
Hmm.
And so the reason I procrastinate is because I'm not happy with it yet.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about like, when I was, recording albums and stuff, like songs, like God, I would never want to, record a new song or play a new song. 'Cause it's like, I'm just not quite happy with it. And I'm not going to do it unless it's perfect. Or thinking about like, different courses or stuff with, do personal training and nutrition. Like, man, I would just sit on stuff and sit on stuff and sit on stuff because it's not quite where I want it to be. Right. And so, well, I mean, is that where your procrastination comes from, that perfectionist piece?
I do think, and that's a phrase that Matt has told me that he's heard from one of his famous YouTubers, Casey
Hmm.
Neistat, is that perfectionism is an obstacle or uh, perfectionism is a barrier to progress, something
Hmm.
like that. So
Yeah.
basically, you're not taking that next best step or that
Right.
next right step forward,
Right.
which is a similar thought pattern to that whole, well, it's hard and it's not going to be perfect and whatever, whatever story you tell yourself about it. And it
Right.
just puts up a wall.
Yep. Yep. And so in the last probably 2 years, I have really been working on a hard thing for me, facing a hard thing for me, and that's to let go of my perfectionism. That's to put things out there that I know, man, this isn't as good as it could be, right? But my options are put it out there imperfectly or never do it, you
Right.
know? And I have become so much more productive with my time by choosing this hard thing of putting it out there when I know, man, I'm not 100% happy with it and it may not be as good as it could be yet, but that's okay because I still get to tweak it. And I actually think I wind up doing things better because I get feedback on the imperfections,
Yeah.
and then I can tweak it and make it better and that kind of stuff. But as I face that hard thing and as I have like consciously made a choice to um, just just produce things, right? Um, Man, my productivity has gone way up. I've gotten way more comfortable with doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I communicate more authentically, you know. I used to see those imperfections and things as like, oh, people are gonna be like, wow, but
Right.
I feel like it actually made my messaging in my business like kind of more cold,
Yeah.
you know.
It makes you human.
Yes.
And
Yep.
sometimes something that just popped in my head is sometimes the hard thing is showing yourself grace
Hmm.
and being human and
Hmm.
allowing that human side to show. So that can
Yeah.
manifest exactly how you're describing, where, okay, this isn't a perfect thing, but I'm going to put it out in the world because it's never going to be perfect. And
Right.
I mean, chances are nobody is going to recognize that it's not exactly up to your standards. You're going to know, which in some cases is helpful, but in some cases
Right.
it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, but also, like, again, choosing the hard thing all the time, or I run into this with athletes a lot where, and I'm not a coach for them in terms of their training, but I do
Hmm.
provide feedback because I approach the whole
Right.
individual and their time management and their work life balance and their stress levels and their sleep and all of it when we work on nutrition.
Hmm.
And I run into this a lot where it's like, well, I've got to do all of it. I've got to do this. And then I throw in this extra spin class. And then I do
Yeah.
yoga on these days. And then my friend wanted to go for a walk with the dogs and then blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute. So, what of these things is actually helping you
Yeah.
toward whatever goal you have set for yourself
Right.
or where you want to be athletically?
Right.
And doing it all. And I will say that most women suffer from this.
Yeah.
I will kind of put myself out there and say most women put a little more pressure on themselves to do it all and to be all things
Sure.
than most men do. And I think that just comes from the way our society is kind of built
Yeah.
around like moms, and like the
Hmm.
mom tends to run the household and set
Hmm.
up the appointments for the kids and,
Hmm.
you know, do some of those aspects. And so, and a lot of the women that I work with, you know, we have these conversations about showing yourself some grace, prioritizing self-care, and not feeling the need to be on all the time and to do things perfectly and to hold your shit
Yeah.
together in front of everybody because
Right.
heaven forbid you lose your shit. But those are hard things.
They are.
And it's actually easier for some people to hold themselves to such an impossible standard and never meet it than
Hmm.
it is to actually give yourself permission to have
Yeah.
some grace and some self-care and to ratchet it down a little bit, because
Right.
then it feels like you're failing or you're not ambitious or you're not achieving or you're not worthy or all of
Right.
these, BS kinds of
BS
things.
things. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, the hard thing can be showing yourself some grace and
Mhm.
backing down a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, something else I've learned through just kind of the last couple of years of that experience is people don't care as much as you think they do.
Yeah.
Like not even a little bit, like we get so caught up in all these things about like, oh, they're going to think this, or how is this going to be perceived or portrayed, how does that make me look, or what's that? And it's like people are so caught up in their own stuff worrying about what other people are thinking that they
Oh,
don't
yeah.
give a crap about what you're doing,
Yeah.
because it's like I'm just in my own head worrying about what other people are going to think about my stuff. It's like people just don't care as much as you think they do about a lot of the stuff that we get caught up in, and I just think there's often something really refreshing about that authenticity, you
Yep.
know, not trying to be something or portray something you're really not, but just a bit, this is me, and this is the way it
Hmm.
is. I think people often go like, oh, thank you, you know,
Yeah.
for just saying it
Being
that way,
human,
because
being
I
genuine.
relate to that. I don't relate to the perfection, because that's the
Right.
that's the piece I'm constantly striving to and never meeting. So I can't relate to that,
Right.
and it's like a breath of fresh air sometimes.
So there's, I think, we could offer some sort of guideline-ish tips for
Mhm.
people on either end of the spectrum, whether the hard thing is actually showing yourself some grace, some, practicing some self-care, prioritizing things a little bit better and not always being on.
Mhm.
Um, realize that in order to bring your best version to the world, and as you said, to be relatable and to be genuine and to even improve like communication with a spouse, a client, a friend, sometimes that's the hard thing. And maybe work on that. Convince yourself that, is this really important? Is this taking me toward my goals? Is this a helpful thought or behavior or action that I'm taking right now? And start doing a little bit of truth telling with thyself,
Right.
and see
Right.
and see where it leads you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think this is a good idea. I just thought of this just now. So there may be some
Uh-oh.
holes in it, but I think it's a good idea. So I'm just thinking, like if you're faced with a hard thing, it might be worthwhile to ask yourself, what happens if I don't do it?
Mhm.
And what happens if I do do it? Right?
Do
What happens
such
if
a
I
dad joke. Sorry.
so if you don't do it, what's going to be the outcome? Right? Probably the simple answer is things just stay the way they are. If you do it, if you face it head on, what's going to be the outcome? Now, the outcome may be, well, I'm going to fail at first. Okay. So then what happens if you fail at first? Like, what are your options now? Right? Like, do you just go back to the same spot as if you never tried it at all? Or do you go, okay, well, that didn't go like I thought it would. Or if everything kind of falls apart, I can still try again.
Mhm.
Because I think we, like you were talking about earlier, we get so focused on the hard that we look at, there's no success. It's just, I'm just going to attempt and fail, and we get so caught up in that we forget about like the ability to just try again. And
Yeah.
what happens if we just try again? you know
I like to phrase it, let's just see.
let's just
Let's
see what
just see
happens.
what happens.
Yeah.
Because it sounds so like innocent
Hmm.
and, let's just see,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
try it.
Well, and if
So
something
try the hard
unfavorable
thing.
happens, you can try again.
Yeah.
Like, oh well, is the world going to crumble
Right.
down because
Right.
no, you can just go again.
Yeah.
And I think we so often get caught up in those quote unquote failures, is that like they're like an attempt ending event, right? Like, I'm going to be healthy. Oh, it didn't go well, so
Oh,
just screw it
totally.
all. I'm done. Nope,
Well,
not for me.
and people are always looking for that arrival. I have
Mm-hmm.
arrived as a
Mm-hmm.
healthy, intuitive eater. I have
Mm-hmm.
arrived as this, fit marathon runner. And if you look at it like that, like there's a start and an end, or there's
Right.
an end result or an end point, that's defeating the purpose too, because the
Yep.
purpose is growth and discovery and patience and practice and all of this stuff that's
Mm-hmm.
basically indefinite.
Yep. Yep.
So remind yourself of that. And also, relate it back to, again, those hard things that you've done before and you've actually accomplished and
Yeah.
learned how to do very competently. So, I talked with a client about, we were having a conversation about intuitive eating and some of these things that she was really struggling with. And she just was like, man, she'd been working on it for, I don't know, I think 4 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
And you've probably experienced this, where that 3 to 4 week period is about where people start like crumbling a little bit and starting to doubt, and they
Mm-hmm.
start kind of going back to old habits, and they kind of lose, the shininess kind of wears off.
Right.
And so she was just like, I figured I'd have it sorted out by now and I could do this. And I was like, well, now hang on. Like, you're looking at it like there's an endpoint
Right.
to this.
Like, oh, I
Um,
got it now, so I'm good. I can handle it
yeah.
all.
Think about it like, something that I'll relate it to as a cyclist is pulling your water bottle out of the bottle cage and drinking from it while you're rolling down the road. Now, for somebody who's been doing that for years and years, it's old hat, but you might still have times when it's a little challenging, whether you're
Right.
in a group or you're in the wind or your bottle is stuck somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But you become very competent with practice and practice
Right.
and practice with it and
Right.
repetition. But when you first started, it was like, oh my gosh, nobody be around me because I'm going to, I'm going to turn this way. I'm going to take my eyes off the road and it's going to be dangerous and I can't get the bottle out and blah, blah, blah. So if you can relate it back to very simple things that are just now almost you can do it without thinking about it, that often will kind of help reassure you that you can learn new things, even if they're hard. And B, sometimes those hard things become not so hard with practice and you just intentionally keep working on it and keep chipping away at it and tell yourself a different story that you can do this, that you're going to work on it, that you're going to keep going, that you're not going to give up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about like with my kids, like riding a bike, tying your shoes, brushing your teeth,
Right.
getting dressed. Like these are all things that they really sucked at first, right?
Yeah.
They did really, really badly and they had to work really hard to do it. And like for a lot of the tying her shoes, like she can do it with her eyes closed. You know what I mean? Like she'd ride her bike all over the place. But it was really hard at first. It was really hard, and yeah, she at times didn't want to do it, but just came back to it and came back to it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this is easy now. It's a piece of cake. And not that I'm, gonna like minimize some significant thing to like, oh, tying your shoes, but the principles apply. It's the same principles. It may be the stakes are higher or it's, it's a lot more challenging or whatever, but the principles apply that if you just keep trying, it's going to get easier.
Yeah.
That's just the way that works.
So y'all find something, think about the hard thing. Most of you are probably, as you're listening to this, coming up with one or two hard things that you have told yourself it's hard and you just stopped and you didn't go beyond that. So think about those things and what we've talked about here today. Pick a strategy. Pick a different phrase to tell yourself, go back and listen to our episode about rewriting the script, your inner script, and the story you tell yourself about those challenges, and take a different approach or just try again. Keep going.
Just try because let's see what happens.
Yeah. Right? Let's see. That's a good way to end
happens.
That one.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Speaking of let's see what happens.
Yes.
Got a mean in the mundane. You want me to go first?
I do. It doesn't matter to me.
Do you actually have one? Because last time you were like, I don't have.
Oh, you're trying. I think you're projecting
I'll go first.
that on me.
I would never do such a thing. So this was a few days ago. It's always weird when we record twice in 1 week. We're recording twice this week because it's like, oh, I got to have two from the last week. But just watching, we got these puppies and they're like coming up on 5 months old, I think. And they're just a blast. And, just like a couple idiots out there, wrestling and falling over and just being adorable. And Sophie, who just turned 4, they're like her best friends, like not just like literally, like they are friends to her. Like she goes outside to just play with them and she talks to them. She dances with them. I saw her doing magic tricks for him once, it's adorable. And so just the other day she was sitting at, we have like a little picnic table out there for the girls. And she's sitting there facing away from where I was. So I saw her from behind. And one of the dogs came up and kind of put his paws on the picnic table seat beside her, and she put her arm around it. And then the other one came up and kind of got his front feet on the table and the back feet on the bench, and she put her arms around him, and she was just sitting there. You could tell she was kind of talking to him and stuff. And it was just the cutest little thing. And it just like made my day, it's just, she's just out there playing with the dogs with just this moment of like,
they're her best friends.
Oh man, it was so freaking cute. Just like this, pure love from them and from her, and just this moment of just awesomeness. It was great. It was great.
Oh, I love that. And I love how those just little ordinary moments. I mean, that's the whole point of meaning in the mundane. Those things that happen totally unexpectedly and just kind of stop you in your tracks. Like, whoa, this is super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Kids and puppies are just the best.
The best. That's a good combo.
Yeah.
How about you?
I went for bike ride with a friend this weekend, and she and I would say we started our friendship through sport and activity and recreation. Like we basically learned how to skate ski together, and we
Mhm.
would, she was into Ironman when before I went pro. And so we do a bunch of training together. And, anytime we got together, it was usually involving some kind of recreation or food. Actually, that's our other punchline, is like, it's always about food with us.
I like
And
that.
so we haven't been spending as much time together. Mainly because she's so busy with work.
Mhm.
My recreation until almost a year ago was not any form of recreation. It was work, right? It was
Right.
like extreme training. I just didn't have a lot of room for going
Yeah.
for an easy cruise. Um, so she got a new gravel bike and was like, I want to go for a ride. And I know you know all the gravel routes around here. So let's go. So as we're riding, and it literally was like a conversational Sunday ride. Like, I don't care how fast or slow we go. I don't care
Mhm.
how long we go. I just want to go sit on bikes and chit chat and,
Yeah.
have a nice day outside. And as we were talking, heading back to the car, she was like, one of the reasons why we haven't done as much stuff together like this is because you were just always so damn fast and strong and fit. And it's really intimidating for your friends to ask you to go do things with them
Mhm.
and I'm aware of this. And this is something that could be a whole different podcast, but this situation I've sort of created for myself, that this
Mhm.
is one of the trade-offs to that
Mhm.
lifestyle, that shiny pro athlete kind of lifestyle. You end up a little bit on an island sometimes.
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't care about a, how far or fast or how hard we go on this ride. I'm just enjoying being out here with you.
Mhm.
So if this is a barrier, like, we can go meet for coffee, or we can, go for a walk or something like that. That's a little, less
Mhm.
intimidating. But for me, it just really emphasized the meaning of going for just a casual bike ride that had no agenda except to just be with my friend.
Right.
You know, there's no training metrics I have to hit, and I don't have
Mhm.
to like worry about fueling right or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things that I lived in that world for so long, that just going for a super mundane, easy conversational ride with my friend was like the best thing I did all week, or I
Yeah.
mean, maybe all month.
Yeah.
Um, so that was mine, and maybe a little more of a revelation too, and not just like, meaning in such a mundane thing, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Nice. Nice. That's a
Thank
good
you.
revelation. That's good.
Hmm.
Yep. I think just those friendships, especially now, just through all this, just those moments that just kind of hit you, they feel like they have more meaning right now. I
Hmm.
think, they're more
Yeah,
important
that
to kind of
need
hold
for
on to and
connection.
recognize. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Like it.
So with that,
All
um,
right.
go out there and do hard things, people.
Do the hard thing. Yeah.
Or go easy on yourself, depending on which side of the fence you're on.
Yep. Just be honest with yourself about it. I think you can trust yourself enough to know the difference, what you need to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you like what you hear, then please rate us and
Mm-hmm.
subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The ratings really help us.
Yep.
And
And
share with a
reviews. Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It would be awesome. We appreciate it.
Okay.
All
You
right.
guys have a
Have a
good
good
day.
week. Bye.